Episode 16. Paul Lazaro was tiny, and not only were his bones and teeth rotten, but his skin was disgusting. Lazaro was polka-dotted all over with dime-sized scars. He had had many plagues of boils. Lazaro, too, had been on Roland Weary's boxcar and had given his word of honor to Weary that he would find some way to make Billy Pilgrim pay for Weary's death. He was looking around now, wondering which naked human being was Billy. The naked Americans took their places under many shower heads along a white tiled wall. There were no faucets they could control. They could only wait for whatever was coming. Their penises were shriveled, and their balls were retracted. Reproduction was not the main business of the evening. An unseen hand turned a master valve. Out of the shower heads gushed a scalding rain. The rain was a blowtorch that did not warm. It jazzed and jangled Billy's skin without thawing the ice in the marrow of his long bones. The American's clothes were meanwhile passing through poison gas. Body lice and bacteria and fleas were dying by the billions. So it goes. And Billy zoomed back in time to his infancy. He was a baby who had just been bathed by his mother. Now his mother wrapped him in a towel, carried him into a rosy room that was filled with sunshine. She unwrapped him, laid him on the tickling towel, powdered him between his legs, joked with him, patted his little jelly belly. Her palm on his little jelly belly made potching sounds. Billy gurgled and cooed. And then Billy was a middle-aged optometrist again, playing hacker's golf this time on a blazing summer Sunday morning. Billy never went to church anymore. He was hackering with 3 other optometrists. Billy was on the green in 7 strokes, and it was his turn to putt. It was an 8-foot putt, and he made it. He bent over to take the ball out of the cup, and the sun went behind a cloud. Billy was momentarily dizzy. When he recovered, he wasn't on the golf course anymore. He was strapped to a yellow contoured chair in a white chamber aboard a flying saucer, which was bound for Tralfamadore.
"Where am I?"
said Billy Pilgrim.
"Trapped in another blob of amber, Mr. Pilgrim. We are where we have to be just now. 300 million miles from Earth, bound for a time warp which will get us to Tralfamadore in hours rather than centuries."
How did I get here?"
"It would take another Earthling to explain it to you. Earthlings are the great explainers, explaining why this event is structured as it is, telling how other events may be achieved or avoided. I am a Tralfamadorian, seeing all time as you might see a stretch of Rocky Mountains. All time is all time. It does not change. It does not lend itself to warnings or explanations. It simply is. Take it moment by moment, and you will find that we are all, as I've said before, bugs in amber."
"You sound to me as though you don't believe in free will,"
said Billy Pilgrim.
"If I hadn't spent so much time studying Earthlings," said the Tralfamadorian, "I wouldn't have any idea what was meant by free will. I visited 31 inhabited planets in the universe, and I have studied reports from 100 more. Only on Earth is there any talk of free will."
Chapter 5. Billy Pilgrim says that the universe does not look like a lot of bright little dots to the creatures from Tralfamadore. The creatures can see where each star has been and where it is going, so that the heavens are filled with rarefied, luminous spaghetti. And Tralfamadorians don't see human beings as 2-legged creatures either. They see them as great millipedes with babies' legs at one end and old people's legs at the other, says Billy Pilgrim. Billy asked for something to read on the trip to Tralfamadore. His captors had 5 million Earthling books on microfilm, but no way to project them into Billy's cabin. They had only one actual book in English, which would be placed in a Tralfamadorian museum. It was Valley of the Dolls by Jacqueline Suzanne. Billy read it, thought it was pretty good in spots. The people in it certainly had their ups and downs, but Billy didn't want to read about the same ups and downs over and over again. He asked if there wasn't, please, some other reading matter around.
"Only Tralfamadorian novels, which I'm afraid you couldn't begin to understand," said the speaker on the wall.
"Let me look at one anyway."
So they sent him in several. They were little things. A dozen of them might have the bulk of Valley of the Dolls with all its ups and downs. Billy couldn't read Tralfamadorian, of course, but he could at least see how the books were laid out, in brief clumps of symbols separated by stars. Billy commented that the clumps might be telegrams.
"Exactly," said the
voice.
"They are telegrams?"
"There are no telegrams on Tralfamadore, but you're right. Each clump of symbols is a brief, urgent message describing a situation, a scene. We Tralfamadorians read them all at once, not one after the other. There isn't any particular relationship between all the messages except that the author has chosen them carefully, so that when seen all at once they produce an image of life that is beautiful and surprising and deep. There is no beginning, no middle, no end, no suspense, no moral, no causes, no effects. What we love in our books are the depths of many marvelous moments, seen all at one time."
Moments after that, the saucer entered a time warp, and Billy was flung back into his childhood. He was 12 years old, quaking as he stood with his mother and father on Bright Angel Point at the rim of the Grand Canyon. The little human family was staring at the floor of the canyon, 1 mile straight down.
"Well," said
Billy's father, manfully kicking a pebble into space, "there it is." They had come to this famous place by automobile. They had had several blowouts on the way.
"It was worth the trip," said Billy's mother raptly. "Oh, God, was it ever worth it?"
Billy hated the canyon. He was sure that he was going to fall in. His mother touched him, and he wet his pants. There were other tourists looking down into the canyon, too, and a ranger was there to answer questions. A Frenchman who had come all the way from France asked the ranger in broken English if many people committed suicide by jumping in.
"Yes, sir," said the ranger, "about 3 folks a year."
So it goes. And Billy took a very short trip through time, made a pee-wee jump of only 10 days, so he was still 12, still touring the West with his family. Now they were down in Carlsbad Caverns, and Billy was praying to God to get him out of there before the ceiling fell in. A ranger was explaining that the caverns had been discovered by a cowboy who saw a huge cloud of bats come out of a hole in the ground. And then he said that he was going to turn out all the lights, and it would probably be the first time in the lives of most people that they had ever been in darkness that was total. Out went the lights. Billy didn't even know whether he was still alive or not. And then something ghostly floated in the air to his left. It had numbers on it. His father had taken out his pocket watch. The watch had a radium dial. Billy went from total dark to total light, found himself back in the war, back in the delousing station again. The shower was over. An unseen hand had turned the water off. When Billy got his clothes back, they weren't any cleaner, but all the little animals that had been living in them were dead. So it goes.